Hey, Brent.
Good
Hey,
afternoon.
Brent. Well, I was sorry. I was telling Todd I was sorry I didn't get to stay for more of the talent summit, but it was cool to see so many folks turned out and
Cool.
stuff happening.
Yeah, I think the breakout sessions were pretty packed for the most part. And I think the different tracks that we had with, Future Ready and youth and data and policy and employer engagement all looked to be pretty well attended. I kind of liked having it at the Salem Convention Center this time as opposed to the Oregon Convention Center up in Portland. It just seemed a little bit more, I don't know, cozy, homey, something. It didn't have that, sort of overwhelming feel as, particularly if there's only one event there and you're the one event and it's not, the leadership summit, it seems a little bit too big.
Yeah.
Well, there was two events, and it was funny because I was walking in and they had a breakfast downstairs,
Yeah.
and Samir from Clackamas is like loading up his plate, and I'm like, wow, they give breakfast, and it turns out it wasn't associated with our conference, which was upstairs. Samir's like, oh, he's helping himself to the other conferences meal.
What do you got? You were well nourished that day.
Yes.
That's one of the things we deal with here at the center when we have multiple groups in and someone orders sausage and like biscuits and gravy in the morning. I have to buy biscuits and gravy for the entire building because nobody cannot have it. You can smell it. The guys from the CDL building are over here. It's like, okay, everybody gets breakfast. It's just not fair.
Well, I don't know that we're going to get to quorum or not. So I suppose, Chris, we can just go ahead and have you kick things off, and then we'll work through things based on how it plays out in terms of quorum.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Chris Latimer here, live from Knife River Training Center down here in Albany, Oregon. Let's do a quick round of introductions. Just to make sure we know everybody that's on the phone or on Teams, and there's Craig. So why don't we start with you, Kaylin?
Great. Good afternoon, friends. Caitlin Lane out here in Condon, Oregon, Eastern Oregon, frontier and remote communities, Gillum, Sherman, Wheeler County, and I work for the Ford Family Foundation. Hand it over to you, Brent.
I'm Brent Kell. I'm a board chair of Workforce Partnership, as well as CEO of Valley Immediate Care down in Southwest Oregon. About Todd.
Todd Nell, Director of the Workforce and Talent Development Board, and co-staff to this committee with my good friend, Mr. McGough. So I'll toss it to you, Mr. McGough.
Well, thank you, Todd. Andrew McGough with Work Systems, which is the workforce board for Multnomah and Washington counties, and co-staff with my friend Todd to this committee. And I do want to say, Chris, I attended your presentation at the town summit, and it made me even more excited for the visit we're going to take as a committee to Knife River. It's really a pretty amazing facility and a lot of really great stuff going on there, and I'm excited to learn more and see it in action. So thanks for the presentation and the invite. And I'll hand it to you, Craig. Right.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Can you not hear me?
We can hear you. It's just really delayed.
Now we can't hear you.
partnership.
Right. So should we jump over to John?
It's John Whiteley from Roseburg, Oregon, actually Myrtle Creek, Oregon, manufacturing sector partnership with Southern Oregon Workforce Investment Board for Coos Curry and Douglas County.
Go ahead, whoever is like next.
Hey, Debbie.
Hi, Debbie Rady, Boardman Foods, Eastern Oregon.
Looks like we have Clay on here.
Not a member, but Clay Martin. I am staff lurking in the background, listening to the conversation. And I will turn it over to Jennifer.
Hi, all. Jennifer Purcell, Director for Future Ready Oregon here at the HEC. Also, staff lurking in the background. Thanks, Clay. I'm not sure who all has gone.
Well, let's just say this. Whoever hasn't gone, let's go ahead and do a quick introduction.
Thanks, Chris.
Hi, this is Marin on the phone. I'm on the road. Marin Ariola with the Governor's Racial Justice Council and also Commissioner for Business Oregon. Thank you.
I can go next. Stacy Calkins. I work on the Future Ready Oregon team, and I administer 2 grants to go to the local workforce development boards. And I am definitely just staff lurking and loitering in the background.
Love it. And did we get Sydney already?
Hi, I'm
No,
Sydney
Sydney
King, and
hasn't
I'm
gone.
support to the Workforce and Talent Development Board.
Did we get everybody?
Good job, Sydney. Yeah. Hi, I'm Derek Disney, Procurement Manager for HEC.
Great. All right. That's everybody. There's nothing like introductions on Teams. You can't see everybody's names. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. I think do we have a quorum? I don't believe we do we?
No, we do not have a quorum, and there is no public comment as well.
Okay, great. Yep. So, we got organizational business out of the way. No public comment because we don't have a quorum. We won't be able to take care of the consent agenda. So we'll move right along to item 4.1, WTDB agreements.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I might go ahead and just provide sort of an overview of what we're going to cover off today as well. In addition to just a quick flash of the member agreements that you'll recall, we, I think, approved at our last meeting. We also wanted to share some information about the RFP process. I'm glad that Derek Disney with HEC Procurement Leadership is here. Andrew and I had met earlier and prepared some remarks to share, but I think in the event of Derek's expertise, we'll be able to just toss it over to him. And then we'll sort of finish up with a conversation and some decisions about how we want to move forward regarding that. So as you can see, thank you, Sydney. Here are those membership agreements that we went ahead and adopted that the WTDB approved for its sort of tenets and agreements in terms of the way we conduct business. As you'll probably remember, the last time we showed them, they follow nicely the acronym of WTDB with callouts on working collaboratively, having transparency and trust in the work that we do, respect and civility, I'll call out there underneath that T chunk, and then on to the D around data-driven decision-making. I think this is really important. There were a number of conversations that occurred at the Talent Summit, matter of fact, around the utilization of data and dedication to outcomes and accountability, all of which fold nicely into the role of the WTDB writ large, and particularly this continuous improvement committee in terms of roles and responsibilities as a governance and oversight board. And then last but definitely not least, calling out some of the connections to our Workforce and Talent Development Board strategic plan around being bold, around that betterment or continuous improvement mindset, and then, focusing on beneficial innovation. So I'm not going to say anything more there. I just want to keep sort of reminding folks of these agreements on a regular basis, and will from time to time include them in the packets. So there's the friendly reminder. Thanks so much for thinking about these as we meet and as we move forward in our work together. So with that, I think we've got some good news and some, I think, interesting news to share around the RFP submissions. I think generally Andrew and I were hoping that we would get some additional or more responses to the RFP. That said, we got one, which I think is exciting because of a number of reasons. One, that should allow us to move more quickly. I think there's some decision points that have to be made today in order to do that, which Derek can help us out with. I think also, the response that we got, I think we feel comfortable with. That said, I don't want to trip over things. And so, Derek, if you're amenable, I'll just toss it over to you to sort of explain what went down and what we need to do next to satisfy HEC procurement requirements around the RFP award.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Todd. So we issued a request for proposals against the state price agreements for this particular type of service, and we only received one response. It's from Coraggio. I believe Todd has already provided the proposal as an attachment to a prior email. And when we're in this situation where we only receive one proposal, we would, otherwise normally set up a scoring committee, have you individually score and then submit those scores to procurement. But that's not necessary when we only have one. So really, you decision makers are in the position of evaluating that proposal and deciding yes or no, whether you want to move forward with issue of a conditional notice of award. And that would allow for Todd and myself to negotiate with Coraggio, if you decide to go that route, for statement of work, tasks and deliverables, and budget amounts. So that it's just a yes or no from decision makers today. For everyone that is voting yes or no on that, I do need a conflict of interest form completed as Todd had requested as well. And just so you know, the backup, what do we do if we decide no? Well, then we don't have to use the state price agreement. We could go back out to the open market and we could solicit any number of entities that would be capable of doing the work. We would have to have that solicitation open for a minimum of 7 days, but strongly suggest 2 weeks. And I can't comment on your guys' timeline, but it sounded from Todd like that there's not a high tolerance for engaging in that process.
This is Debbie Rady, and the Coraggio group, as I understand it, has done quite a bit of work for us and seems to be very knowledgeable about what we're trying to accomplish here. So I just want to get others' input on that, but I'm feeling like there's really not a problem with using them if you feel like it's not money thing or some kind of negotiation can be made on the amount, but that's my thought.
This is Brent. I don't think we have a lot of time to dick around here. We gotta get moving too.
Looks like Susie has a question.
I agree with Debbie. My concern is it's the appearance of. And we have someone that's doing every one of these for us. And yes, they do have the history and they do have all of those. Because I run a federal program, we always have to make sure that the appearance of a monopoly to one group is never going to happen. So I just want to just add that into the consideration of doing all of this, that it doesn't come back and bite us in the butt at some point and we just had no idea it was going to.
Yeah, I can comment on that. I would share your concern, especially when we keep giving contracts again and again to the same vendor. But we did do an open solicitation process. We did, send direct email
Right.
to all eligible vendors under that process. And we can't, an auditor or Secretary of State or Department of Administrative Services, if they came in and looked at our process and what we did, they would very clearly see that we did everything that we could to trigger competition, and the other organizations just simply were not interested in applying.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know your internal process. I know my internal process, and we do all of those exact things. So as long as we can keep this where we can show that trail, I have no problem with that. They do a good job, and they've given us great information. So I just wanted to make sure that we were taking care of ourselves.
Can I make a comment? This is Marin Ariola. Can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
And so being part of the Oregon Business Commission, we also noticed that Business Oregon hires a lot of Coragio. And so some of the commission members had also a concern that we were favoring this company a lot with all the work that Business Oregon was doing in terms of assessment, planning, and so forth. So just be aware of that. And so some of the commissioners really wanted to make sure that Business Oregon did have more of aggressive outreach procurement approach to make sure that, in terms from a regulatory standpoint, that they reach out to more vendors in a way that was more intentional and real, not just posting on Oregon buys, but doing more intentional outreach in terms of procurement process to make sure that people heard about it from other sources about the work or the proposals or the RFP that they were trying to do. But that was a concern with some of the commission members. Just FYI.
Greg, you have your hand up?
Yeah, sure. No, yeah, I think I appreciate that feed.
Okay, Craig.
Can you hear me?
It's oddly delayed.
Yeah.
Maybe try turning off your video, Craig. That might provide some additional data.
Provide some additional data. Craig, can you elaborate on that?
Marin's concerns.
Hey, Craig, I don't know if you can hear me, but Sydney just typed in the chat. I wonder if you could call in by phone. Sydney just typed in.
Okay, while Craig works through that, any other thoughts, comments, concerns, Derek?
No, other than, even with Business Oregon as procurement, you have to be incredibly careful about reaching out to vendors and how in depth you do that, because you can't provide additional information to one or some vendors and not the entirety of eligible proposers, because that would infringe on the fundamental fairness, which is the hallmark of the procurement code. So while we do directly email all of the eligible vendors under the price agreement, which is pretty substantive, it's the same email that goes to all of them. And yes, in future ones, if you all request and Todd requests, I am more than happy to make direct phone calls and leave, the same information on voicemail, or if I talk to somebody, and that may add a personal touch that may trigger someone to propose where they haven't before. But just historically, especially with this one, we have made more advanced efforts in the past, and it still comes back to Coraggio are the only ones that propose. I think it was 2018 the last time I saw someone compete against them.
Andrew?
I'm not sure if Debbie had her hand up
Oh,
first.
yes,
She's
now I
number
see
one.
Debbie.
You're okay. Go ahead.
You know what we call, if you forget to leave or take your hand down, we call it a legacy hand.
Okay.
And I always thought that'd be a cool band name. So, just in reviewing the proposal, and I would agree with all the comments, it would certainly it's always better to have multiple respondents. It's always good to make sure that we're reaching out as proactively as possible. I am, being somewhat familiar with state level procurement, I can tell you how thorough they are in maintaining the bidders lists and doing that work. So I feel confident that at least from the procurement side, that they've done their due diligence in terms of outreach and that kind of stuff. And I would just say, from my perspective, I think it was Brent that mentioned it. There are some advantages to going with Coraggio. I did notice that the team is different than some of the prior teams we've worked with. There is some overlap, but there's also some new faces on the Coraggio team, which I think is a positive. But I do think their prior work will help expedite their process. And again, our deadline hasn't changed. The legislature requires a final report to the governor by December. And so I think having an organization like Coraggio, who can literally hit the ground running and doesn't have to do a lot of sort of recap and back work because they've already done it, I think is a positive for this group. Again, I just some perspective from a staff and end of the thing. That's just where I landed. But I do, I hear what everyone's saying.
My comment, I'm going back to the cost, and I guess I don't understand the process of determining what the cost was. Is it like the low bidder or whatever that is? But do you have an idea of what the cost would be? And we're not going to be overpaying just because they're the only ones that bid. So that's not really a concern. I see shaking hands. Okay, heads. And then the other one is, I wonder, because we are on such a tight time frame, if maybe some of the potential bidders felt rushed, or were we able to give enough time for them to be able to, plan to do the work, or get the bid in, or whatever the process is for putting in your proposal? Was that a hindrance, do you think, to some that might have bid?
I'm not sure.
I don't
Derek,
believe
do you
so.
know? Oh,
Yeah, no, we allowed more time for this one than we typically do. So I
Okay.
would find that very unlikely.
All right, well, that might be the argument. I was thinking, like, if someone was, say, why do you keep using Coraggio? Well, you only gave, this amount of time, and they are the only ones that was familiar with it, and so everybody else really didn't have a chance, but sounds like you've got that covered.
Yeah, and usually I have some indicator of people that are interested but are running out of time to put something together, because they will usually right off the bat or somewhere in the posting period, they will ask for an extension. And then what I do is when I receive that request, I check in with Todd and say, hey, do you want to extend this or not? And that didn't happen here.
Okay.
John, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm not at all familiar with your guys' proceedings, but just from the outside looking in, it sounds like you guys followed your process correctly. Sounds like you had one bidder. It sounds like maybe you have a chronic system issue down the road, or maybe you don't. Maybe no one's interested, but it sounds like that is a separate issue than moving forward. It seems like what you've done is defensible. It was transparent to going back to your list. I think from my opinion, if you have a deadline, you've done everything, and maybe there's an additional action item that we would go back and look at how we would reach out and maybe either make it more simpler or easier to follow or easier to access. But it seems to me like you guys did everything just fine, and it's a separate issue from what the actual problem is, either a lack of vendors or a lack of people, or maybe it's just not spreading the net wide enough.
Thank you. I did see that someone just joined us by phone. Who was that?
That's likely Craig.
That's Craig. Okay.
Hey, Craig.
We can hear you now.
So I would like to jump in here now. I have concerns about this. Again, from my government job, this would be highly scrutinized eventually. And I get the timeline process, and I'm certainly not suggesting that we hold this up. But we are a continuous improvement committee. And this is not continuous improvement if we keep doing this over and over again. So I'm noting for the record that we should also be telling this contractor this is a concern for us as we put together a report. I don't know that we can do anything about it, but we should at least try to understand the root cause of not having more than one vendor. I'm concerned about it in another project that I'm working on for WTDB, and that, wow, is this really what we're going to face here? It's just one contractor every single time that this body has to do work. So what's the problem? And not that we can answer it today, but I'd like to better understand. Is it we're not offering enough money? Is there just nobody out there that competes with Coraggio?
Great. Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, those are great comments, Craig. And you just made me think that it would be good in the not too distant future for maybe Andrew and I to get together with Derek, Disney, and explore possibilities around strategies for the future so that we could best ensure our chances of getting more responses to the RFPs that we put out there. We were hoping for more, and unfortunately, yeah, we just didn't get any. So yeah, thanks for those insightful comments.
Right.
I don't know, Sydney, do we have a quorum? I don't think we do we?
No, we do not.
So we're kind of back to that sticky wicket place where we are really close but fall just short. And as you know, per public meeting law, which we have to follow, we're allowed to vote once we do have a quorum, either in person or virtually over a platform like this. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to vote via email. So I think, although clunky, what we're left with is to have Sydney send out a doodle poll, schedule a vote meeting And this will give you the opportunity to, if you so choose, look through Coraggio's proposal, and take a peek at that. And then Derek, I was sort of multitasking when you were speaking about process earlier, but I think you touched on, and I'll just reiterate the fact that Derek would like each of us, well, you all members, to sign the conflict of interest form. If you could do that, it was included in the previous email out to you earlier today, and then send me directly that signed copy of that document saying that you don't have a conflict of interest. If you do have a conflict of interest, obviously, please disclose that. Then I'll roll those up and send those over to Derek so that he has the documentation that he needs under procurement law to make sure his I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
Perfect.
So I think, Chris, that that's it, unless others have comments or reflections or insights that they want to share. I don't know if you want to jump in at all, Andrew, before we let everybody go, but I think the obvious next steps are for a doodle for a vote meeting. It'll take about 5 minutes, and we'll have a quorum, and we can take care of it that way and get this thing moving forward as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I don't want to get in the way of someone's free time, but I do, I do appreciate the conversation today, and I think everyone's right. We need to figure out ways to encourage more people to respond. But I think at the end of the day, Coraggio is pretty well qualified to do this work, and I think they'll do a good job.
Yeah.
Great. Right. Anybody
Can I
else?
make a comment? Yeah, hi, Debbie. This is Moran. Just a quick announcement regarding the RGC. So the last month we had a meeting with the governor, and Jennifer Purcell gave a great recap of Future Ready Oregon, a report up to this year, and people got informed in terms of Future Ready Oregon. And also as a committee with the Economic Opportunity Committee, we talked about creating subgroups of people that are going to work on different issues. And some of the things that we're looking at is workforce and employment reform. And of course, also discussions on Future Ready Oregon for the next session. So just to be aware of that. And, I encourage if, we have committee meetings with the Economic Opportunity Committee every other month. The next meeting will be on June 26th. If one of you would like to, I don't think it should be a problem, but yeah, we're meeting on June 25 at 2:30. And so definitely we want to focus on workforce development as part of our Economic Opportunity Committee. And more to come on that. And so as we go forward with this work group, I'll be keeping you informed of what's been will be happening with this committee. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Anybody else have any parting comments, last minute comments, thoughts? Okay. If not, I'm happy to give you back. Oh, there's Craig. What's up, Craig?
Yeah, thank you. I guess one of my, like the 800-pound gorilla here, but I'm concerned about the lack of quorum. This is happening quite a bit in this committee, and I'm curious about how do we solve that. Surely you all in leadership positions for this committee and others have been thinking about this. I mean, do we have enough people in the committee to make up for the lack of those who can't meet a schedule? It just concerns me. We've got real business to conduct here, and we can't get it done. And this isn't the first time. What's our solution to this?
I think that's a really good point, Craig. I've only been on the committee now, a month, but we do have a planning meeting, I think, next week. Todd, Andrew, Kaylin, and I believe.
Yeah.
I think that it's a really good point. And at least my experience with committees such as this, dating way back into the day when I was in workforce development, was you have to have a committee that has to have something to do. Nobody wants to spend an hour of their time not doing anything. So I think it's making sure that we have agendas with action, and we're communicating that action properly as we build up towards the meeting. So maybe we just, this whole RFQ process, this isn't shiny and sexy stuff to talk about, approving an RFP. But I think there's ways to do it, and at least in my experience, and what I would suggest is that it's through creating action and opportunity for committee members to really do work.
The other thing that's would be helpful for me is just having the invite on my calendar. I don't know if I'm just the only one that doesn't have it, but it's complicated for me to actually get on to the meeting. So make it easier for committee members to join in. And then secondly, I was wondering, is there, like in my case, I have a full-time job, and so other things get in the way that are frustrating for me, because I'm like, I know I need to be here, but could I have a substitute or is there a method for that to where, yeah. Is there a option for that, or is that absolutely no?
The last time this came up, a couple of years ago, we did some research and the answer was no, Debbie, but things may have changed. So I'm happy to do some research and find out the latest and greatest as it applies to proxy voting. But I suspect it's still not allowed.
Yeah.
Sydney, I feel like and think that we've had an ongoing problem for some reason, Debbie, with the invites for you.
Okay.
I don't know if it's, I think for a while it seemed like we had 2 emails for you. So just flagging that for Sydney, I think she made a comment. I'll make sure that we set out more or send out another group of invites to you. It seems like a recurring issue. I'm not sure why.
Okay. I get it through an email, that I can link in, or I go onto the website and I finally find the link to get in. But if I'm traveling or something, other people are traveling, and it's a little harder to hear or to communicate, but I can't do it when I'm traveling because I can't, I don't have the computer and all of that. So if it can be done on my phone real quick, then at least I can vote on something, if the link's always there in my calendar.
And the other thing I'll do, just since I'm gonna check that out in terms of proxy vote, I'll double check again to see if anything has changed in terms of email voting for public meeting law. But I doubt it, but I'm happy to take a look again. The other thing, Craig, back to your question, that we've done in the past when we've struggled a bit is sort of institute a process whereby before meetings where we have a vote that needs to take place, we'll send out several notifications. Please do everything to attempt to attend the meeting. The results of that have been pretty good. So from time to time, we do have challenges, like I think many boards and committees do with quorum. But we can definitely flag this so that when we do have key decisions like this that require a quorum, we send out notification ahead of time. Please show up. And we've even gotten so far as to try and pinpoint a time, Craig, that people who have conflicts and are crazy busy like all of us are then able to jump out of their current meeting or sign on to a second meeting and be part of the quorum and vote. So I made a note here to follow that protocol again for a while when we do have situations where I need a quorum.
Thanks, Tom. Anything else? All right.
Do we have enough people? Do we have enough people on the committee? I'm sorry, just is there a need for more people so that you can get a quorum more regularly?
There's 16 people on the committee. That's pretty good size committee.
Oh, okay.
I'd say you're more likely to get a quorum with a smaller committee. So
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Okay. No worries. Okay, I'll let you go.
all right, everybody, enjoy an extra 15 minutes in your day.
Okay, bye.
Good to see you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.